I grew up fairly not affluent.
Yeah.
But I wasn't poor.
Yeah.
In fact, I kind of differentiate the two words rich and wealth.
Sure.
At two different levels. Wealth is how much you have, or what your worth is. Rich is what kind of person you are. Are you a rich person, or are you
right
a taker?
Sure. Yeah. What kind of person are you?
Yeah.
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 No, I agree 100%.
Hi, Santa Fe. Whether you've moved here recently or have family roots here that go back for generations, we can all feel that our city is moving in the wrong direction. And while there are several things that I mean by that, today I want to focus in on mainly the increase in crime and homelessness that we've all noticed all around us.
I grew up in Santa Fe and lived most of my life here. Homelessness has become a big issue in the city of Santa Fe. Although the data may not support that, our eyes do. Cerrillos Road, 5 years ago, didn't have the amount of homeless people that we used to see. And at first, it's easier for us to just dismiss that, as that's the normal thing happening in the United States. But honestly, I don't feel like that's normal in our community. Of course, we've always had homeless here, but they were members of our community. We knew who they were, but now it's different. And I think the purpose of this documentary is to really show the human side of things. This is a complex issue, and it's not something that can be solved with a one-size-fits-all solution. Instead, we decided that we wanted to look at and interview many of the different people that this affects, from business owners to the homeless themselves, and the people that are working hard on the front lines of poverty to volunteer their time and their service to their other members of their community.
Out of all the people that we've talked to and interviewed, and not all of it is on record. There's a lot of, gas station attendants, store managers, people that for various obvious reasons, mostly legal or corporate standards, couldn't come on camera and talk to us. But we really did do our best to go into the community and talk to anybody who would speak to us about what we're talking about. Because there's different types of homeless people, it can't all be treated the same way. And I think that's one of the problems when people talk about the homeless and people kind of conceptualize what the problems may be, is you're talking about people that are there for different reasons. And so one solution cannot be the fix for all of them. Jeremiah 29, verse 7. Seek the peace and well-being for the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For in its peace, you will have peace. What brought you to Santa Fe?
Well, I come down with a friend of mine to see if I get my vehicle and take it back home with me. And
Did you take the car to like a mechanic, or
yeah.
And the mechanic is fixing it, or wasn't ready yet?
No, he took it to another mechanic, and he said, well, this guy said it wasn't fixing, so he went ahead and crushed it.
Wow, he crushed the car?
He crushed the car.
Wow. Well, how can he do that if it wasn't even his car, right?
That's what I said, but, he said, well, it's been here for 6 months, I said, well, I know, but, so he got it on, what do you call it?
He got a mechanic's lien on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we get any further into this first part of this docuseries, I want to take about 5 minutes to address something. I want to take a moment to maybe help us understand each other better and ourselves a little better. On October 1st, we put out a teaser trailer to this docuseries on various social media platforms, and we got a ton of comments and messages in response. Although most of the responses were overwhelmingly positive, there were some negative ones also. One responded, "Thank you so much for what you're doing in all of this, and thank you for caring about our community." Another responded, "You are so full of hate and malice. I will pray for your blackened souls." On the social media platform for locals called Nextdoor, our trailer was reported as being hate speech and was removed. When we contacted Nextdoor, they admitted that it was reported to be hate speech, and it was removed under the smallest of technicalities that we've never heard of. So how is it that something can appear to be caring and loving to one person and then seem hateful to another? There are two ideas we want you, our watchers, to consider and keep in mind through this docuseries. Number one, people have varying moral matrices. Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist and scientist that has done some groundbreaking research to explain why seemingly good, well-intended people can have such sharp disagreements about basic things, even to the point that they view each other as morally inferior or bad human beings. In his book, The Righteous Mind, he goes on to detail from years and decades of research he and his teams have done to boil down the moral foundations humanity is built on. He then shows how good people can look at the same fact set on various issues from politics to religion to how to deal with crime to many other common points of disagreement and come away with wildly differing opinions. So we now have a pretty good understanding of the mechanics behind moral judgment and why people think differently. So the takeaway is actually pretty obvious. Don't be too quick to assume the worst of people who see things differently than you, or you just might be the one making things worse. Number two, when we say the homeless, this is not one group of people. It is, in fact, at least 5 different groups or types of people. And so they cannot all be treated the same way, thought of the same way, or helped the same way. The person who threw poop at me is not the same person who fell on hard times and lost everything, and that is not the same person who goes around breaking into homes. Through our work making this docuseries, we have come to the belief that there are 5 base homeless people groups. Homeless by addiction, homeless by choice, homeless by mental illness, homeless by necessity, or imposters. Now, imposters are like the guy my wife observed for weeks, standing daily at the corner of Cereus Road and St. Francis Drive. There he was with his dog and sign, looking poor as poor can be. Then he'd walk over to a nearby parking lot, get into his brand new Mercedes with Colorado plates, and drive off until the next day. We know one local homeless imposter who grosses over $4,000 a month and has a house of his own and lives pretty well. So when you layer on all these varying complexities, it's no wonder there seems to be a lack of consensus as far as what the right thing to do is. And many of us are unable to see past our own moral matrix and unable to discern types of homeless. And so the product of that is some people thinking that this documentary is hate speech when all we're trying to do is help because we love our city. We care about the homeless, but we also care about people getting attacked at gas stations and getting their cars and homes broken into.
Towards the end of my career here in Santa Fe, I was actually in charge of being sort of a broker between the homeless population, the shelter, city government, and the affected.
Wow.
So the affected citizenry, I should say, and I would have a lot of meetings with the people involved. And I have to tell you that it just, nothing got solved, nothing.
We wanted to talk to Luis Carlos for a few reasons, but Luis Carlos was a longtime Santa Fe police officer. He's actually trained most of the people that are in charge over there now. Luis has been homeless himself. He's an immigrant. He's been a police officer, and he now volunteers to help homeless. He has a very, very good mind and eye and experience when it comes to not just homelessness, but to crime, to law enforcement, and to community policing, and to what works and what doesn't work. So I very much value his opinion.
Interviewed and talked about You know, we've always had homeless here in Santa Fe, but you knew who they were. I mean, they were members of the community.
Yes.
And you knew who they were.
Yeah.
But now it's completely changed.
Oh,
About
yeah.
3 years ago, this population has grown.
Immensely.
Yeah.
But remember, we don't have a homeless problem here in Santa Fe.
We currently don't.
And I'm going to address that, man, because that was the mayor's last statement when we brought it up to his attention.
Yeah, was that we don't have a problem. So give me a little bit about your background.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I have been in law enforcement most of my adult life. I started off in working corrections at the ripe age of 18, and I shifted into law enforcement right at 23 years old. That's where I've been here in the city of Santa Fe since back in 1993.
Okay. So you were a city police officer for the city of Santa Fe for quite a few years.
For decades, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, so I was the typical bred policeman, worked the streets here in Santa Fe, patrolled the city. I promoted to detective and then sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and ended up taking over the operations of the police department just before I retired.
Okay.
And after I retired, I stayed away for 3 years, and I went back to work for 1 year as the chief of police, and I just decided that retirement was better for me.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working the streets of Santa Fe, we've had a homeless problem. It was it's small. It was a very small problem. It was a handful. And most of the time we knew who the homeless people were, and we knew what was ailing them, whether it be, substance abuse or some sort of psychiatric problem. And then it just spread. It spread like a wildfire, metaphorically speaking.
So I've talked to a few, people like yourself. Obviously it's raining, and you've got a lot of stuff. Is this the way you prefer to live, or is this just kind of a situation that you just kind of find yourself in?
For now, I'm kind of preferring this is the way I live.
Okay. I've talked to a lot of people that have said the same, and I don't really have an opinion on that. I'm just asking you if this is if this is where you want to be.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Where I want to be is on a beach in Hawaii drinking a Mai Tai. That's where I want to be.
There you go.
And I want to be wealthy.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
My friend Jeff has always kind of been an inspiration to me. He's a young man, but he's got a wealth of knowledge and experience. He's spent some time living in the streets of Santa Fe and has a unique perspective on what it's like to be homeless in Santa Fe and what the community is all about.
So I was homeless when I came here, and I stayed actually at the Interfaith Community Shelter Group, which is now known as Pete's Pets. And every week they would have a new church or religious organization that would serve and do that there. And I eventually ended up becoming the youth representative on their advisory board when they became Pete's Pets. I was there when they put the walls up.
Pete's Place.
Oh, it's right. But when we got started,
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was
Right.
still
I
called
got a
Pete's
snake
Pets,
from there
okay.
when it was actually Pets.
oh wow, right. I met Pete. Pete's a cool guy. And I remember in this scenario, I have access to the bottom of society and then the top. You got these people that are insurance company high ups, and they're participating in this. I remember asking one of them, why are you doing this? The truth is, it's a 501c3. And from what I hear, there's some kind of benefit with tax or something involved with that. In my opinion, this whole Pete's Pets thing is a way to reallocate the place where the homeless will gather and do what they're going to do, and keep it away from downtown, the money-making center of our fine city. In my experience, it was really never for me. I really never fit in. Everybody loved me and all that. I was the kid, they called me. All these old timers and stuff like that. But that world was never for me. And no man is an island unto himself. So I did have help. As far as like organizations getting together and something they planned and organized and orchestrated, you know, you get a meal at a certain place, church, or at the Pete's Place now, I guess they call it.
Yeah.
So, but besides them providing meals, they really don't do much. They'll connect you to LifeLink, and then there's a long, drawn-out process of getting Section 8 and all those other things because there's a big line.
Just as someone who has been homeless, one question that I did have for you is, what's going on with homeless on homeless violence? Because one homeless person that I've spoken to was talking to me pretty passionately about this. What can you tell me as far as the prevalency of that? Your experience with homeless on homeless violence.
It's dog eat dog. You're completely exposed to the world and vulnerable. And I'm talking about actual homelessness. In my opinion, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I was homeless in my car. Not the same. You are in a metal box that separates you from the outside world. Go down to the plaza and try to sleep on the park bench.
Right.
And see, like what I brought up earlier is like people either have a mental disability or they're developing one from being homeless too. Who knows?
That's a good
PTSD.
point. Yeah.
It feeds into itself, and then people will turn to drugs to supplement that, and then maybe they'll take over. But you're dealing with people that are dealing with that. Their problem becomes yours because there is no barrier between you and them.
Right.
If you're smart, you'll go off in the woods at night alone, where no one's going to find you. And because if you, for example, you could get drunk underneath the bridge with somebody, and they can end up trying to kill you, and the next day they won't remember any of it. They'll be like, "Hey, let's go drink again." It's crazy. They'll kill each other over a square, man.
So it's kind of anarchy, kind of dog eat dog.
Well, I don't want to give this like Escape from New York feel exactly just yet. It's not post-apocalyptic.
And I don't want to paint with too broad a brush either.
Me neither. Yeah.
So of course things are not all the same, but that potential is there, of course. Yeah. And probably not too uncommon, I would imagine.
Very likely.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're at, you hang out around Pete's Pets, man. You're guaranteed, because that's where the epicenter is right now in Santa Fe, in my opinion. Yeah. There's downtown, and I know most of these guys. I've known them for years. Mm-hmm. I didn't stay where they're at, and and they're okay with where they're at, and they're glad I'm where I'm at.
Hey, you guys okay? Are you okay? I'm just checking on everybody, man. Is he okay?
Yeah, he's fine.
I'm not going to touch your stuff. Believe me. You're good.
Why the hell do you have your camera out?
Because I want to make sure that you're taken care of. And the only way I can do that is by filming this. So I can bring the right people in to take care of you.
I'm not taken care of.
I know. That's why I'm here to help you.
Every single shelter here in town.
You been to everyone?
Absolutely. And none of them will let me stay there.
I know. That's why I'm doing this, is so I can take this somewhere, so somebody will take care of you guys. You guys are not being taken care of. This is not being taken care of, is it? Is it?
Hell no. It makes me want to cry, bro.
Well, tell me about it. That's my business right there. I cry every fucking day I come in here.
As adults, we can take care of ourselves. We don't need a fucking babysitter.
Too many people, too many of our elected officials, when you ask them about this stuff, they refuse to even say there's a problem. They act like, oh, well, this is a nationwide thing. It's happening all over the place. As if, normalizing it, leave us alone about it. When in reality, how are you gonna protect our city? Let's just assume that that's true for a second. Wouldn't a local leader want to protect the city that they're leading from national problems like that? Instead of so many of them, not all of them, but so many of our elected officials are just looking to say, well, that's just how it is. That's just how it is.
In many ways, there's like a mythology about it, or we don't understand their life, and they're just over there. They're over there. We don't talk to them, but the truth is, they're human beings. Pastor John Romero is a good friend of mine. I've often gone to his church, and he's always been there to help me and and my family. And anytime I'm with him, I feel inspired when I walk away. We had a unique opportunity to go with Pastor John on Saturday to Pete's place as they volunteered to feed the homeless. As I was there, I observed kind of the hope in people's eyes as Pastor John talked to them. And I just kind of sat back and I watched some of these volunteers, and I could see that they were volunteering because they did love their community. And you could see the wonderful interaction that the people had with each other as they talked, as they volunteered their time to these folks. I didn't know personally that you could donate clothing over at Pete's place. But at the same time, I saw that there were leaks in the ceiling. At one point, I was able to see Pastor John as he was talking to a few members of the homeless community. And it was inspiring because out of those 3, there are currently 3 people that are homeless that are attending church on Sundays. I think this is a win. This is when we have that community engagement. Ultimately, a lot of folks, when they're in this position, there's no hope. But these volunteers and members of our community like Pastor John and some of our other religious organizations bring hope to those that are hopeless.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
you. Yeah, thank you.
JD, we go way back. Cassandra, it's a pleasure meeting you.
It's a pleasure meeting you too.
Yeah. How long have you been helping and volunteering to help the homeless?
We have been involved. We would have to stop and kind of consider. Remember when they used to meet back at Ashmore Park outside? Remember those deer? Yeah, before the fire station was even there.
Yeah.
That's really where we started.
Gosh, how long has that been?
I'm going to say probably late 90s, early 2000s, so 20 years.
Okay.
We started going to Pete's Place as soon as they moved. We've always been engaged. So when Salvation Army took over, again, they've always had some kind of a covering, the homeless need in this community. They moved it to their facility on Alameda. So we just moved over there. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of adapted and just provided a meal the second Saturday of every month. That's always been our day, is the second Saturday. That said, when they went to Pete's Place, we just moved to Pete's Place. And again, today was a bit of an exception because I didn't see the typical zombie drug infused folks. Typically, they don't even let them on the premises anymore, and we just take food to them outside the fence. Right? That's been the radical shift that I've seen probably in the last year.
Okay, so when you say, excuse me, when you say zombie, what do you mean by that?
Just completely drugged out. Yeah, just completely incoherent, just there.
So in the past, there's always been problems and stuff, but that state of so many of them being kind of zombified, as you put it, you've seen a steep increase in that recently.
Big increase.
Well, when we asked when we asked Anna over at Pete's, what would you think if because we did mention how it was impacting some of the neighbors, and she said that she totally understood that, but she said that's just not that's not my purview, that's not my business or my calling. I'm here to help these people, period, and that's what I do. But she said, I understand their frustrations, but at the same time, she said, I don't think it would be a bad idea to move us. And I think they're trying to talk about that. But, I mean, to your point, where? Airport Road? Of course.
Airport Road. Because they can't move that type of shelter to the county or the outskirts, because then they're not going to get anybody. Because a lot of the homeless don't want to be on the outskirts of the city, they want to be in the city.
Yeah.
Because there's accessibility to things. By no means is this a criticism of Pete's Place. In fact, it's just the opposite. They really are doing God's work, and they are impacting and helping the lives of homeless here in Santa Fe. I would encourage our community to volunteer their time, donate food, clothing, or just go on a Saturday and help feed the poor. This will help us to better understand the plight of our homeless.
This has really affected your life.
Oh, it destroyed me. Literally.
It destroyed me so much that it took me a year in Hillsborough to regroup and find my place.
One person we did want to talk to in this docuseries is Mark. Mark is the owner of Z-Pets, which is located directly behind Pete's place. Mark has an interesting perspective because on one hand, he has served on city boards to try and come up with solutions for the homeless problem, as well as how it's impacting the community. Pete's sits in the middle of town, and Mark's property sits right behind it. Mark had to close his business from the overflow from Pete's. He no longer felt that it was safe to go to work and for his clients to come for his services. This has affected Mark's life personally. Today we're here with Mark Edwards. Mark, thanks so much for taking some time and talking to us.
You're welcome.
You had a business here in Santa Fe.
I have.
Z-Pets.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just give us a little bit of a background of
Sure.
what happened with you and with your business?
Z-Pet went all the way back to probably 2005 when I moved here from Alaska. And I came here with an extensive background in dog training. And I started out at Paulkner Kennels on the frontage road, if you remember that, before the New Mexican and all that came about.
Yeah.
I started out there. Phoebe Wilkinson had that.
Wow.
And I started out there, and I went out there to train dogs, actually. And Phoebe was done. She turned it over to me, and I leased it. And then I think that was in June, July of 2005. August, it used to be the Pet Guardian. And David Lucero owned that. And it used to be Shooters back in the day.
I remember Shooters.
There you go.
We would have birthday parties.
Yeah. Shooters. And it was pretty a wild area.
It was fun. It was one of the last old honky tonks in Santa Fe.
Yeah.
What happened at the time where Pete's place started interfering with your business? How did that look?
Early on, I was pretty naive about it. So here I am in my model, and here comes the shelter. And in the beginning,
we're talking about Pete's place.
We're talking about Interfaith Pete's place.
And you're located behind Pete's
directly
place.
Behind them.
And Santa Fe Auto Detail was behind you.
Well, we're in the same building.
Okay.
So we shared the same building.
I see.
I didn't really spend a lot of time on worrying about that because I've never been around a shelter. Mm-hmm. It's a soup kitchen. I mean, how much of a problem can that
Yeah, God bless them, Yeah.
But my neighbors were really concerned about it. So I went to the meetings. And I've already been to the meetings about neighborhood notification for developments. And I saw how that worked. And all they're responsible for is posting a neighborhood notification meeting. We'll take your input. Thank you. And then we'll do whatever the hell we want.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Period. So I saw that with my development part and doing the real estate part. Now here I go down the road with shelter, and everybody's like, no. So I'm out here training dogs now, and I got people lining the fence at Harrison, screaming, obscenities, and I'm training these dogs, and the last thing you want when you're training a dog is a distraction.
So you're going out to your backyard, the place that you've purchased to train your dog, to train dogs for people, and you can't even go out there sometimes without dealing with human waste, dealing with people,
everything on the street,
yelling obscenities at you,
at me,
at anybody,
at me.
Yeah, and you're expected to just kind of, I guess, run your business in that and be fine.
I couldn't. That was one of the things I couldn't do anymore. I believe, and I've had a lot of the police officers tell me that, there's nothing we can do, Mark. We've been told repeatedly, leave them alone. In December of 2021, I was forced to close my doors for 3 months. I opened back up in March. It was so bad that I couldn't risk myself, my staff, or my clients coming through that street anymore.
Because it was just not safe.
Oh my God, it was beyond not safe. And the city knew it, the shelter knew it, the police officers knew it, everybody knew it.
And if you ain't got vaccine, they ain't gonna let you in.
They said if you're not vaccinated?
Right.
And that was Pete's?
That was Pete's.
So Pete's is not letting in unvaccinated?
Right. That's what I got told. I'm just going by what I got told.
No, it's all right, bro. I just think that, I don't know, man, it just seems like
there's just so many different levels that things can break, you know. And I also think that it's a real trick that people have to fall into two things. Like, number one is idealism. Like, we have to fix all of the homelessness period and all of the problems, and you can't think in black and white terms like that.
It's completely unrealistic.
You've got to think in terms of improvement, best improvement, you know, the best that you can do. And then secondly, I encounter other people that are saying things like, well, you know, that's a problem, but do you know that some, you know, reservations still don't have water yet? And do you know that we could be having another resurgence in COVID-19 or this or that? And that almost just like, it's like almost like they're trying to mute the whole subject altogether. Like, because we have other problems, a different form of idealism, right? Because we have so many problems that this is just another one. You know?
It is funny because it's hypocrisy. So let's say that the homeless issue is not an issue because we have bigger issues, right? We have the issues of a resurgence of COVID-19, not everyone's vaccinated, you know, all of these things, and then we brush it off by saying this is a national problem. This is a national problem. And then we look at this way of solving the problem. Solving the problem means, oh, if they're homeless, that means they don't have homes. So if we put them into a home, then they're no longer homeless.
Right.
It's bullshit, because what it is I'm trying to get quantifiable data, so during my next election I can say, look, we put these many people in homes.
Right.
But what's going to happen is you're going to put them in a home because you think that solves homelessness.
Yeah.
Because to solve homelessness is, let's get them off the street, put them in a tiny home.
Yeah.
But they're going to go back to being homeless, but you're looking for data.
Right.
Because you've dehumanized them.
Right.
You've dehumanized them by saying this is just another statistic.
Right.
We're going to put them in a home, use that data point, so when it's time for me to run for re-election, I said, I put this many people in homes.
I don't think that the people who live on this area, City South we'll call it, realize how powerful they could be if they turned out to vote.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I
because
agree with
there's
that.
the numbers are here.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's the working class, it's the people who are day in and day out. You know, we really almost don't have an excuse to not be able to go vote. You can go do it tomorrow over at the county fairgrounds. You can go downtown during the week. I mean, make that effort if you're registered, and you know, you keep on hearing, get out the vote, get registered, go. And that's our democracy. That is our democracy. But we need to be involved. And if we're not involved, then we continue to see these issues in our community continue to grow, and therefore our quality of life just goes down.
City Councilman Lee Garcia is a longtime business owner here in Santa Fe. He's the owner of Garcia Tires. And I personally know him because I've also bought tires from him as well. But one of the things that stands out most is when we were able to do this interview with him, I noticed that his hands were still dirty from working. He's a working man. He's one of us. And he shares a unique perspective on some of the issues that our community is currently facing.
Are you born and raised here?
I was born in Santa Fe, raised, I went to Poakia High School,
Okay.
actually raised a little farther north of.
So based on that, there must have been something that inspired you to run. And is the Santa Fe that you grew up in the same Santa Fe that we currently live in now?
Well, absolutely not. Obviously, since growing up, we've seen how big Santa Fe has grown and how fast it has grown. You know, I was born in Santa Fe at the old hospital downtown.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go visit it every once in a while.
You ever stay there?
I've stayed there a few times.
Yes, the Drury Inn. They have a great rooftop pool.
Yeah, it's really nice. We stay there for fiesta usually. And anyway, I mean, you know, as you grow to a larger city, you're going to deal with large city problems. That doesn't mean that we have to tolerate all of the issues that are going on. And there is one common denominator that I think everybody realizes, and I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on, whether it's, you know, on political aisles, but if you just take a drive down our streets, and Surrealist Road is obviously one of the biggest issues, and it's there. We have a problem.
Yes.
We do have a problem. How do we fix it? You're going to have different perspectives. You're going to have different ideas. And I think that if you get different perspectives, different ideas, we're all working towards a common goal. I think we can be successful. Being on the governing body, absolutely, I can see how the direction is to house the homeless. House the homeless. And I keep on bringing up the point that says, yes, house them, but what's the step plan to get them self-sufficient? Because you can't just house somebody and then just not have any, not necessarily consequences, but responsibilities for them.
Right.
And so, going back to a hand up and not a hand out, as a community, I think we all need to rise up and be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
I think the city of Santa Fe is no longer the community that it once was. You know, when we look at that, you know, who is to blame for homelessness? Do we say it's society? Do we say it's drugs? Do we say it's bad policy? And ultimately, at the end of the day, who are the people that we elect to handle these issues? Because the community can.
Yeah.
The community can rally with non-governmental organizations or the average day person that's going and donating food or donating their time to these homeless shelters.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if they start doing that and they start solving the problems, then we start saying, well, there's bigger problems, and why isn't our elected officials helping to solve this problem? But does the city of Santa Fe have a plan to move forward? Do they have a policy in place? Or are they creating a policy to you know, kind of curb the homeless epidemic in Santa Fe?
You should be passionate about what's happening because this is our community. This is where children are going to, you know, have grown up, where our grandchildren might end up growing up. Or where they, and so we want our communities to be safe. And I think that we're definitely at a junction right now that we start really working on focusing on the problems and how do we fix them. Not just create, like I said earlier, create another rule to fix the problem that you're seeing when you already know what the problem is. And when you're talking about policies that are set in place, this current administration specifically seems to be working towards housing the homeless, creating a society where everybody is able to be taken care of.
Would this be kind of like the outdoor spaces kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say. And here again, I mean, if we continue to invite people to our community that are homeless, we will have a problem that we will not be able to fix, I think, at some point.
We need to go to City Hall or the Hall of Records or wherever it is when we're talking to... And we need to start looking up the statistics on what they have as far as homeless in Santa Fe. And then we need to start seeking information, because I asked him that. I asked him yesterday, I said, the plan for homelessness in Santa Fe, is it accessible to the citizen? And he said no. They don't even know where it is. So, is that not something that should be accessible to every person?
Yeah.
If you have a plan for homelessness, it shouldn't be some big secret. It should be available for us to see.
Yeah.
If it's not available for us to see, then there's one of two things. One is you don't have one, or two, you have something that you're going to do, but people aren't going to like it.
Right.
And you're trying to hide it from us.
Right.
I want to see what that plan is.
Yeah.
I want to see what that policy is, because it didn't seem like there was a policy. It didn't seem like there was a real legitimate plan.
Right.
And if your plan is to duplicate the failures of the city of Albuquerque by creating outdoor spaces that are just going to become more of a problem for the community. Because then where are you going to put it? Are you going to put it in your neighborhood? Are we going to put it downtown with all the rich people? No, they're going to probably put it on the south side of town, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they've done, is they've pushed us all out of Santa Fe downtown to the south side.
Yeah.
Kim is a dog lover to the max. We thought that it was important to ask her some questions because she's constantly taking care of the animals of a lot of these homeless people. As a matter of fact, she drives around often looking to see what kind of condition these dogs are in that are with homeless people. Are they freezing? Are they limping? Do they need care? Do they need food? Do they need water? So someone who's constantly helping take care of that aspect of the homeless community, thought it was a great idea to talk to her, and I'm so glad we did.
Dun, 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 dun.
No, I was just telling JD, one of the reasons why I wanted to just get your opinion is because you are, so passionate about dogs, right?
Absolutely, 100%. It's all about the dogs.
Yeah, and you also know a lot of the local homeless people by name. I was impressed when you were telling me, that was probably so-and-so or so-and-so when we were talking. And you also will drop off food to them for their dogs, and even like water dishes and jackets for the dogs. When
Absolutely everything that they need, I have. If we went out to my car right now, you guys would say, "You're crazy. What are you doing?" But I have winter jackets, I have sweaters, I have dog bowls, I have leashes, I have collars, kibble, wet food, anything you're gonna need for your dog, whether it's winter or summer, I have it.
One story that you told me a while back was there was a dog that was obviously in distress and, not well. I can't remember, you can refresh my memory, and you said, "Let me rehome your dog." And they just refused. They said they don't make as much money without a dog there. Can you recall that story to me?
The story there, and I can still picture it in my mind, it was downtown Santa Fe. And the dog had just been hit by a car. And she was hurt. And I begged him to let me take the dog. Let me take the dog. I'll take her right now to Smith's. Smith's is open. And he said, "No." I said, "You come with me. I don't want your dog. You come with me. We'll take him to the vet." Her to the vet. And he had the nerve to say, "Do you know how much money I can make off of her tomorrow with her in this condition?" And man, that struck a chord. He had no compassion in his heart for this dog. This dog was his moneymaker. Oh, I've seen 2 dogs that were suffering from heat stroke. One of them ultimately died. I carry umbrellas for them in the summer, at least to shield them from the sun. But repeatedly I'm told they look better when they're suffering. If my dog is suffering, I get more money. And it kills, and I'm not saying all of them do this. There's a small handful of them that really care about their dogs, that really want what's best for their dog, that really care about them, but it's a small handful. The majority of them, they're using them as a sympathy card, and it's working.
Well, I think just from this conversation, there's some revelations that have been revealed here in the sense that, in many ways it's a business, and they're using dogs as a way to tug on people's heartstrings.
I think at times they get high and it doesn't affect them the way it should. There was another man last winter, I told Eli about this, and I know him and his dog, I've been helping them for years. He couldn't walk. I went out looking for him and he couldn't walk. I found him
You're talking
crying.
about him or the dog?
Him,
Okay.
the man, the homeless man.
Okay.
He was crying, and I pulled into Market Street and he couldn't walk. And he was crying and trying to give me $10. He said, please go buy me something to eat. I haven't eaten all day. And I looked at his feet, and his feet had swelled up. He had frostbite. And I said, you need an ambulance right now. And he was he didn't want me to call the ambulance. I said, you're not even going to live through the night. And it was a snowstorm happening at the time. And sure enough, I called an ambulance. I took his dog for the night, for the weekend actually. And he had frostbite. He'd fallen asleep the night before, and his was drugs and alcohol. He fell asleep the night before, didn't put on shoes, and when he woke up, his feet were in the snow, and he got frostbite.
You know, you're making an interesting point indirectly, and that is that a lot of these people are high and or drunk, and they have numbed themselves to the environment, but that dog is not numb. That dog is feeling everything that person should be feeling, enough to make their mind click that we should get out of here. We need to change what we're doing. We need to change our habits. But when they're numb, they're not feeling that. The animal's not numb.
The animal feels it. These dogs are so abused to such a level that it's incredible.
If there is somebody that says that there is not a problem in the city of Santa Fe when it comes to crime and homelessness, well, that's simply wrong. Your data can go one way or the other, or say that the data doesn't show that there's an issue. But you know what's better than the data? Is your own eyes. And when you're walking the streets of Santa Fe and when you're going to businesses, you're affected by this, and you can see it. If you've lived here long enough, you'll know that there is a problem going on in our community, and it can be solved. But ultimately, you know, when somebody says in Santa Fe that homelessness does not affect them, I beg to differ, because it affects everyone.
And unless something changes, I guarantee you, this is going to get a lot worse. If we think it's bad now, it's about to skyrocket. And we've got to course correct now.
And the average person that lives in Santa Fe doesn't really think too much about homeless. And I think that's an easy thing to do, because if it doesn't really direct your life or negatively impact your life, then it's easy to pretend that it doesn't exist. But when do we say as a community, enough is enough, and we want to make a change? When would you say was the change, the turning point, where it started to become more bureaucratic and less effective versus maybe back in the old days, or maybe not too long ago when city government was actually running as it was supposed to?
Well, when we had mayors who understood their role. So I think, frankly, any mayor up to the current one understood their role.
Joanne has been a long-time Santa Fe councilwoman. She ran for mayor recently, and we kind of all know her. She has some very, very good wisdom and insight into the way that our city government is run and maybe could be run better.
So I just, I'm concerned about the city of Santa Fe. I'm concerned about our Hispanic culture. I'm concerned about what's happening with our homeless here. And it's kind of sad. This does not remind me of the city that I grew up in at all.
Yeah, can you imagine me at my age? I mean, look at the things that I've seen back in the day when it was like really, really Santa Fe. I remember things we could do with a lot of freedom and not worry about a thing. And you knew the police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That was really when community policing was working, and it was, it was great. You knew pretty much all the police officers, and they knew you, and there was just a whole different feeling. I mean, you didn't hear about a lot of murders, and you didn't hear about all those things that go on now. And I think it's because we've become kind of a lawless community.
In regards to the homeless situation that we have, because this is statewide, and of course a lot of cities are dealing with nationally with this rise in the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
But to your recollection, when was it when you started to really look or drive down Cerritos Road and you'd see a homeless person at every street corner and now all these shopping carts everywhere? A cousin of mine was injured by a shopping cart. He was riding his bike down the sidewalk and ends up getting clipped by one of the shopping carts. When did you start to look at it and say, this is not like it was? Like we do have a problem here. When was it that you kind of, when it came to?
Well, when I was a city councilor in the last 4 years, it's just, it's becoming more and more egregious of a problem. And the things that the mayor brought to us, which was a Built for Zero program, he had a meeting which I thought had some promise with the Seattle people who started that program. The stakeholders were in this meeting, which is all of the people who have anything to do with mental health, with homelessness, with feeding the hungry, and some educators. And it was to me, there was some promise there. But there's a problem. You can bring ideas, but if you don't have the people who know how to implement, and if you as a leader don't keep focused, it won't happen. So nothing really has happened. I will say that buying the hotel over on off of Zia was an idea that probably helped some people, but I don't believe there's a good property manager there, because there's a lot of out of control things going there.
There is.
The homeless shelter at Midtown, I heard horror stories from staff because there wasn't a focus there of managing it. So you had internal strife, and you have people who are housed there who have severe issues, a lot of different issues. And so there's not which I would have done, a case management system that starts at the very beginning of finding out who these people are, getting the stakeholders around that can help, and doing a case management of some sort. Take the people out and put them in places and get them treatment that have a sincere desire to help themselves. Mm-hmm. Because as you know, the current shelters like Pete's Place and such, they won't take people who come in inebriated or under the influence, because then they just disrupt the people in there that are serious minded and really do need shelter. So I think we need to get into the weeds on this program, and we need to identify the people who don't want help, and then establish how that's going to happen. And then we hear a lot of anecdotal stuff about people being brought in from Albuquerque. I don't know if that's true or not. There are people who swear it's true, and then mess around on street corners and sell whatever they have to peddle, and then get back to Albuquerque. I don't really know. What I do know is that we really need to do something. It's the same issue with affordable housing. We talk and talk and talk, and we talk and talk and talk, but we don't actually implement. So it's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. That's how I feel about city government.
You're starting to see these camps just surface out of just nowhere, all over in our open spaces.
Yep.
The haves are okay with that because they don't have to deal with it. Unless you're a city councilor on the south side, you get tired of getting my phone calls because, hey, what's going on here? What are you doing about this homeless camp that's going on here? And the answer that I've gotten was, well, we're looking into it. Okay, that's a standard issue and political answer telling me to shut up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it has to change. Again, we can put up tiny homes here in Santa Fe. It's not going to work. People are not going to want them in their backyards.
Yeah. I think that it's two-dimensional thinking when you have these politicians that think if you put a roof over their heads, problem solved.
No.
And it's I mean, that's like one-dimensional thinking. It just doesn't address any of the core reasons why they're there, and yet they keep on trying to do that. They do it in California, and it appears that our mayor wants to model us after that, because
Absolutely.
everything that you see, I mean, Gavin Newsom said years ago, if you elect me, within 10 years, the homeless problem will be gone, I'll take care of it. Okay, it's worse than ever.
And that housing solves homelessness. And if we're going to solve the problem of those that are out on the streets that we define as homeless, we better solve the housing problem if we're going to have an impact. And that's why we established this framework, what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco.
Well, absolutely it is.
And so you have needles in parks, you have encampments through neighborhoods and streets. You have more housing for them than ever, and you have the worst problem ever.
Right.
And so I am concerned that we start to go down that as well.
And then, you know, the mental illness, Patty. I remember watching Patty going down the street, one shoe off, one shoe on, screaming at the demons in the middle of the street, pushing her shopping cart. And I remember mentioning that to a meeting, and Joseph over there, he goes, I made $5,000 off of her.
How?
Fundraising, Patty. I couldn't believe he said that. I couldn't believe he said that. And here's Patty, and I'm looking at Patty, going, where you going? Where you going, Patty? Right down the street, in the middle of the street. One shoe off, screaming at the demons, lipstick all over her face, pushing her cart down. Where you going, Patty? I couldn't believe it.
That's so sad.
I couldn't believe it. And this guy's telling me he made $5,000 off her.
Yeah.
So when you look at all these different components of these homeless people, it's really about them. Because if they are taken care of the right way, nobody is going to suffer from that. I'm not going to suffer. My business I would support them.
There are other players in this whole issue and approach to what's happening in our city that don't even live here.
Right.
They are the ghosts that haunt Santa Fe that we can't see and we can't hear.
I'm not using no bathroom on the virus. I'm clear, I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm not looking at the camera.
Okay, you don't have to be on the camera. I'm trying to put this in front of people to help take care of you.
Okay.
That's all I'm doing.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay.
No, I'm not here.
I wish you would not pick up like you.
I know you guys are frustrated beyond tears.
You know, when I go and I volunteer and I go pick up food and I deliver it to the two shelters here in Santa Fe on Sunday mornings, I have to tell you, it breaks my heart to see some of the faces that are waiting for it. Mm-hmm. I have seen faces of people that have worked at City Hall. I have seen the faces of students that I used to coach. I have seen the faces of women that I know from church. I have seen just broken faces. And to take this broad paintbrush and say they're all homeless, they're all sick, they're all the same, you know, they're all addicts, they're all crazy. Okay, that is the most stupidest thing our government can do. They have been made to be the villain. They have been made to be the cause of what's going on in our society. They're not. They're just a symptom. Mm-hmm. You know?
running on me now.